We call upon the first speaker, Mr. Vivek Pandey, Vice President Growth and Analytics, Times Internet. He'll be speaking on the Flywheel of Growth. Mr. Pandey.
Presentation show up here? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I have it. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thanks for joining today. My name is Vivek. I head growth and analytics for Times Internet. Times Internet is the online side of the BCCL business. BCCL, as you all know, is the owner of the Times of India group of publications, ET Now, Movies Now, all the TV channels, Radio Mirchi. And then we are a very small part of that group, which is the whole internet side of it. Apps and websites you would have heard about, like Ghana or ClickBuzz or the TOI website, ET website. So all those properties are managed by us. Without further ado, let me just move to the presentation. Can I have a handheld mic, please? Sure. Me? It's fine. Okay. So the topic that I've chosen is basically the flywheel of growth, and I'll get into it. Gradually as we go along the presentation, you'll understand what this flywheel of growth is that we talk about. In the beginning, I'll tell you how data at Times Internet is significantly different from data at some of the other companies out there that sort of have big data today. So two essential categories of data that the way we look at it, you can have deep data or you can have diverse data. What is deep data? It's basically you have a long sequence of signals or events about the same type of activities. So, let's say, for example, you are a mirror in a guy's bathroom. So you get to see, what time he brushes his teeth, right? But then you get to see it every day, and you get to see it in every fine detail. Like on Mondays he brushes at 7:30, and on Tuesdays he brushes at 8 o'clock. And you just have a long sequence of data, very, very deep data about the same kind of activity. Whereas in diverse data, you're almost like a flying robot that sort of accompanies him around, and you get to see everything that he's doing, all the various different activities that he's doing. The essential difference being that while one allows you to know a lot about just one aspect of his life, the other allows you to know a little bit about multiple parts of his life. What that changes is that in deep data you have a high degree of inference. So you'll have to interpret his personality, his relationships, a lot about him, just basis that one activity that you are observing in great depth, right? So there'll be models, machine learning models, AI models that will interpret that people who hold their toothbrush on the left-hand side are mostly men, and people who hold their toothbrush on the right-hand side are mostly women, and so on and so forth. You can get the analogy. Whereas in diverse data, we don't have very deep data. We have shallow data because we have properties where people come, spend 5-10 minutes of their time, maybe twice or thrice a week, go away. Exceptions are, of course, companies like Ghana, where people are spending 1.5 to 2 hours a day just listening to music. Exceptions would be ClickBuzz, where people are sort of watching cricket commentary like for 5-6 hours, 8 hours in a row. But beyond that, mostly it will be a spread of different activities where we know a little bit. But whatever we know very, very specifically, very clearly, and we don't have to interpret or infer anything from there. So moving on, just to set the context, as I told you, Times Internet, 270 million users monthly. We are seeing across mobile and website. After Google and Facebook, we see the largest pool of audience in India today. But yes, unlike Facebook or Google, you'll not see it as one platform. You won't even realize that you are on Times Internet, right? You'll be either on Ghana, or you'll be on ClickBuzz, or you'll be on Men's XP, or you'll be on India Times, Times of India, Economic Times. But Times Internet is sort of in the background there. So now with all these high-end shops, like the analogy that we use internally is all these high-end shops, the picture on the left you can visualize is like a street which has some great shops, your rodeos and your Beverly Hills kind of streets. But what happens is that the guy is sort of loyal to just one shop. He goes to his favorite suit shop, or the girl goes to her favorite cosmetic shops, drives in, buys, drives back, right? What is missing in the left-hand picture is that, there's no movement of people too much, right? There is loyalty, no doubt there is loyalty, but then the marketplace is not benefiting. So we sort of internally pursue this concept of crosswalk, which is essentially, a crosswalk that you use to cross the streets. And the picture on the right is where, that street really comes alive when people start using the crosswalks to move from one business to the other. And that happens only when you facilitate that, right? If you look at the street on the left, it really doesn't have a crosswalk. It's not welcoming enough for people to cross over. But the street on the right is very welcoming, so people will keep moving, and the sort of overall, as we call it, the ARPU of the user goes up because he moves around. With that intent, now comes in the concept of the flywheel of growth. So what we have built internally, and I'll walk you through that in the next few slides, what we have built, what is really a flywheel? Let's just start with that. And that's where, usually this slide comes up as an animation, and unfortunately in the PDF format, it's not there. But the first picture that we usually show is that of the sewing machine. And all of you would have seen those, old tailors with sewing machines. And if you notice the movement of their feet, right, they just sort of tap on it for like 2-3 times, and after that it just keeps moving for a while, right? So that's what the essential definition of a flywheel is, that it's a wheel that doesn't have to be, you don't have to constantly provide energy to it to keep it moving. You provide it energy for a while, then it stores that rotational energy, and then it is able to transmit that stored energy to other moving parts of the mechanical system. That's what the flywheel is, the growth engine within Times Internet that we use to power our businesses. The way it works is that all these different businesses, in the last 3 or 4 years, we have done a lot of acquisitions. We keep launching a lot of new businesses of our own. Brainbazi is a new app that we have recently launched, generating a lot of excitement. People are loving the live quiz show format. We acquired MX Player recently. We keep doing a lot of acquisitions actively. What they do is that any business that comes along, if you see in the picture, has a different type of customers, has its own independent engine of growth. Those teams have their own way of marketing, have their own ways of acquiring. But then we connect that growth gear to the central flywheel, and what happens is that their growth engine starts moving very fast, right? Then as a process, it's a symbiotic process. So we acquire their audience, their momentum comes into the flywheel, and then that flywheel also gains in energy, and then is able to transmit that energy to further incoming businesses, right? And that's why we think of it as a flywheel. So the central flywheel is constantly rotating, acquiring energy from the businesses that are coming in, acquiring customers. The diversity is increasing all the time, and is able to benefit any new business that becomes part of this flywheel. Just a quick sort of short snapshot of the way we look at the problem. So Crosswalk is basically our theta in the model. So Crosswalk is what we are trying to determine. What's the right amount of crosswalk between, say, an economic times and a Times of India? Is it 2%? Is it 5%? Is it 10%? We don't know. What are we trying to optimize? We are trying to optimize the lifetime value, which is basically a function of the churn and the ARPU. Customers shouldn't churn, and while they are there with us, they should generate a lot of ARPU. And what are the inputs we have? We have a lot of business data, right? And we all know in big data you have like loads and loads of data. You have traffic and so much of clickstream coming in, right? So then before we get into this, so that's the essential sort of summary of what the flywheel of growth is. What is it used for? Is it used for generating crosswalk? And why are we interested in crosswalk? Because it raises our revenue as a group. There are 4 key platforms that are part of this flywheel. The first platform is the authentication platform. And the analogy I've put here is basically the proverbial elephant, people looking at different parts of it. That's essentially the customer today, right? Some people who are using OTP login know the customer as a mobile number. Some people are using FB login and know the customer as an FB ID. And so that happens to us. Ghana and CricBuzz may have the same customer, but they don't know he's the same guy because you have not really physically seen him. You don't know that this mobile number is the same as this email ID, and that's where a lot of machine learning comes in. Most of you would appreciate that. It's the whole concept of clickstream fingerprinting. You try to infer in a stochastic way that probably this mobile number here and this email ID here is probably the same guy. So we have models like that. We have the single sign-on platform. So anybody signs in anywhere on our businesses, he's signed into the network. And then using that, we try to unify the customer across our platforms. The second part of the flywheel is basically the audience platform. What this does is that it mines like thousands and hundreds of thousands of behaviors of customers, and then sort of aggregates them into what we call as audiences, right? So if you're watching too much news related to auto on Times of India, or you're visiting some of our auto sites like Zig Wheels, and you're watching a certain sort of type of cars, we sort of put that all together and we classify you that, okay, this is a luxury car lover, right? And so on and so forth. And we have like about 56,000 audience definitions in our platform today. The one on the right gives you a short snapshot of what that looks like. And then the chart on the top shows you, the lines are actually about 1.5, 2 millions a day, which is the kind of behaviors we track about each customer. So the first one is about the authentication. The second is about grouping behaviors together into audiences, which we call as the DMP platform. The third one is the affinity or the loyalty platform. So you can't build loyalty to a brand that is very narrow, right? Loyalty is generally works better at, say, something like a Macy's or something like a Big Bazaar, where you can go for various needs, and hence you sort of repeat for various reasons, and it's sort of productive for the business. Or you're a very high ARPU business, like an Audi, right? So even if you buy the same Audi after 3 years, it's still good value for them. But we are like not really an Audi. So we have to do a lot of cross-website loyalty, and that's where we have a centralized loyalty program within Times Internet called Times Points. So we give you points if you listen to a song, if you listen to a news, if you use Dine Out to eat out at a restaurant, various things, and we sort of club all your points together into one place. So you have a central loyalty to Times Internet, but it's not really lock-in, that you don't really have to be on Ghana or listen to songs only to sort of be categorized as a loyal person. So it's cross-platform affinity and loyalty that's there. And finally, it all boils down to advertising, which is our bread and butter. Being a media company, being a publisher, that's where the money comes from. So we put all of this together, and we have our own in-house advertising platform that is basically anything that an ad exchange does. It allows you to basically create campaigns, and anybody who has advertised on Google or Facebook would be very familiar with these concepts. Creating ad copies and setting bids and budgets and stuff like that. What's unique about this is that the advertising platform itself it struggles with the problem of high dimensionality and struggles with the problem of rarity. So it's going to be very, very rare to observe a certain event because people are clicking all the time. So let's say an article on Narendra Modi being clicked, out of billions of clicks, still, even though how immensely popular he is, still will be like 0.01% of your total volumes, right? So there's rare data, but then there's high dimensionality. There's so many politicians, so many topics, so many songs to cater to. So you put all of that together, and then you create a model out of it. And that's what the advertising platform does. It allows you to reach to your audience and then sort of make money out of it. This is a quick summary of what goes into that advertising platform. So we use the sort of standard approach of an ensemble ML. So we have multiple models running, lookalike modeling, standard regression, logic, stochastic, Bayesian. All of that are running on like multiple sort of cluster of nodes, and then there is a sort of a referee process in between, or an ensemble, which sort of allows all these guys to vote as to which one of these would be able to generate the highest amount of CTR or ARPU, and then it sort of aggregates all of that and then uses that to publish the ad to the end user. This is not really rocket science. It's almost any ad platform would do that. But it's just that we have built all of this in-house, and it's generating some amazing CTRs for the advertisers. We have seen lifts like 70 to 80% in click-through rates increasing because of this. Then what we have done now is that since we have so much of data, since we have such an awesome platform, so we have also started exploratory data science and AI projects that are tangential to the core purpose of advertising. So for example, ET Money is one of our businesses, earlier known as Smart Spends, was acquired about 2.5 years back. It was in the business of tracking your behavior to figure out what are your spending habits and then making suggestions to you. Now they are full-fledged into mutual fund investments. So you can go to the ET Money app and you can sort of buy mutual funds there, and then gradually they're going to increase to equities and other financial products. So we, using the ET Money and the DMP and all the data that we have built, like all of you know your, what's that, CRISIL gives you a score, right? Your credit rating score. So that's your public score, which is based essentially on your financial history. What we have done is that we have taken all your behavioral data points and tried to interpret your credit worthiness from that. So for example, and it's very basic, the actual thing will be very complex than this, but somebody who's reading Economic Times is probably more credit worthy than somebody who's reading an Bharat Times, right? A very, very crude example, but that's essentially what it boils down to. And our financial partner, which is RBL currently, is actually using this model to give away loans on the fly. So earlier, while giving loans used to take a month and a half to process, take data. Now at least 70% of the work is done by the predictive model. We give them a credit score, and then using that, they do the last 1 or 2 steps and just instantly give out loans. And they have reached massive scale because we have like millions of users. We immediately made available 1 million audience to them, and they are actually struggling to keep pace with the volume we are throwing at them. Then I'll just made a long list. I didn't want to go into each one of them, but using all of that data and the kind of businesses that we have teams that are working on all of these problems, which is for example, we are building an AI-powered CRM where the customer support person itself is an AI, and that's like a very, very common product these days. We are trying to build it in-house. Music recommendations, it's a powerhouse for Ghana, something that Spotify has mastered. We are trying to recreate the same magic in India. It's already live and giving us good results. We are coming up with smart topic pages. So we have so much of content about somebody like, say, a Kejriwal or a Modi spread across our network. How do you put all of that together into one page about the guy, right? Wikipedia today is manual, right? At the end of the day, it's manual. There's nothing smart about Wikipedia. Somebody is putting the content there. But what if you could create a smart Wikipedia? And all of these are just beginnings. You are able to take signals from the user, comments, likes, whatever, and just make sure that this is the best article about this guy, and sort of make a summary about his bio using the data and stuff like that, and so on and so forth. I mean, there are many different applications of this. Yeah, so that's essentially the sort of summary of what the Flywheel of Growth is about, what we are doing at Times Internet. And happy to take any questions if anybody has. Thank you, guys.
You can raise your hands if you have a question. Right at the corner.
Hello. Yeah, what you're doing is really amazing.
I have something to tell you, and all the people who are going to ask questions from now on. It would be nice if you could identify yourself and the organization you represent.
So I'm Vikram Gandotra. I'm from Siemens. I'm from EBA. I'm a convener of World Utility Summit. But my question is purely as a consumer or somebody who would be visiting one of your websites. So how accurate is your analysis that when you give this data to, say, RBL Bank about creditworthiness, what is the percentage of accuracy that you would say expect to come out of the data analysis which you have done?
Sure, sir. So to be very specific and direct to the question you're asking, in terms of the credit scoring, our accuracy is just about 80% right now. But to give a broad, long answer to that, how we are treating all our AI and recommendation systems is that we are still keeping the human element in the end. So we are not letting the machine learning.
So that means if I am part of the 20% which your algorithm has got me, but I am otherwise, fine for credit, so the bank will not offer me that credit.
No, sir. So this 80% score is the standard MAPE score that we use. So it is a combination of positive and negative error rate. So
yeah, so I'm part of the error rate, and because of that, the bank comes and tells me that no, you're not fit for credit.
No, so that's what. So the algorithm is, as I told you in the presentation, the algorithm is telling you 70% of the guy, right? So he's saying that as per the algorithm, his score is 740. Now there are the remaining 30% of verification and everything that the process anyways will do. What we have saved the system is all the data analysis that they used to do to come up with the score itself. So we're talking about the CIBIL score. Today,
so, fine. So my point was, okay, the 70% is fantastic. What you are giving somebody, immediate. But what is the risk for the, say, 30% or 20%? That is also significant. Huh?
no, sir. So let's say to give you a loan, I had to do 10 steps. I had to do data analysis, then I had to do verification and stuff. So what the algorithm is doing, the 70% means that the algorithm is doing 7 out of the 10 steps. The last 3 most critical steps are still done manually. And to answer your question about what's the error rate, even today, people get rejected because their CIBIL scores are low. But then, the agents on the ground just try to make sure that they compensate for that by looking at the recent history and try to adjust for that. So any score that you come up with cannot be a decision maker, if that was your question. We give a score as a recommendation. We tell the agent that, probably this is a good guy to give a loan to, and probably this is a guy not good to give a loan to. And we say that with a confidence, that we are 80% confident. Then it's the agent's entire decision-making process that kicks in, so that, your question that anybody is by chance not given a loan is something that the agent will have to ensure and use our algorithm as an input, not just a mandate.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Unfortunately, we've again run out of time for the Q&As.
Can we take this one last?
Okay, fine. You can go ahead.
Make it quick.
Hi. Hello. Yeah. My name is Ravi. I work with American Express. So my doubt is regarding, BCL has many platforms as you mentioned. So one of it is like Times Jobs. So I think you might have a good number of applicants and you have a very good amount of data compared to other sources because you have a complete resume, address, everything. So how you are trying to map these details with any of the other sources? Because, so I'm an analyst, so I just want to think in terms of analyst kind, how you are mapping the details of a resume to other platform sources. Because
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so very good question. Times Jobs is one of the biggest and richest sources of data within our ecosystem. What we do is that all the plain text resumes that we have, so there are 2 main applications for it. The plain text resumes or the Word doc resumes that people upload, we do NLP on that, extract topics and clusters of tags out of that, and match it to the data that the guy is providing. So let's say you are saying that you are good at Python, but your resume doesn't mention Python anywhere. So we'll raise a flag and let you know that do you want to change that, do you want to correct that. That's one. The second key application is that, all of these tags and clusters that you're skilled in Python, or you have worked for 6 years, or you have worked in MNCs, at the end of the day, these are all behaviors that will go into the flywheel, get aggregated into audience, and then be used for advertising. So that's why we define everything as a behavior. Even your work history, your resume, employment, skill sets, all these are behaviors.
So how many of the customers or the candidates are able to match with other platforms? Is there any rate that you can give us?
Sorry, didn't get your question.
So how many, suppose like if there are like 100 people in Times Jobs, how many of you are able to map to other platforms? Like 10, 15, like how many?
Oh, you mean so that would be really the crosswalk number between Times Jobs and other businesses?
Yes.
I think Times Jobs has a very high crosswalk rate with another business that we have. It's called TechGig. TechGig is a platform where, there are code gladiators event is happening and, you are doing ML contest and stuff. So that is one platform which has a very high overlap. Across other businesses, it will vary, but, usually the numbers we see is not more than, 10 to 15% on aggregate. Maybe there are a few outliers, but on an aggregate, the crosswalk is 10 to 15% between one business and the other.
And I think there is one more matrimonial website for the Times Jobs, right?
Yeah, it's Simply Marry.
So which is better? Is it like the Times Job is better or the other one is better?
Which is better for getting married?
No, I'm just trying to understand like which data is better that you are able to pull out.
Yeah, so it's so Simply Marry is of course better for getting married, not Times Jobs. And you can't compare data, right? So Simply Marry is telling us something else about you, and Times Jobs is telling us something else.
I'd request you to take the rest of the questions offline.
We'll connect offline.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.